Hello, everybody, and welcome back. Today is NFC North Day as we go to one of the coldest divisions, one of the most fun divisions, if you ask me personally, to watch. Because the one thing you can say about North teams and their divisions, they all hate each other. These next two pod episodes, we're going to be talking about 8 teams that they hate everybody in their division and they don't want to see the other one succeed, even for a second. So, NFC North. I'm here with my dad, Tony. We're here to talk about them, and let's just jump straight into the Chicago Bears. And as much as we can talk about how giddy this Bears team is on offense, I think we have to hit the elephant in the room, and that's this O-line is still not good. And do you have concerns with Caleb Williams holding the ball, how he kind of did in USC, getting just kind of brutalized behind I would say, a bad offensive line?
Well, I mean, it's always a concern, right? Especially, I mean, look at Shane Waldron's track record. You know, as an OC, they don't have a lot of quick outs, so quick hit things. A lot of that stuff is deeper down the field, which Caleb likes to run as well. The problem being is if the line isn't going to hold up, then he could be in for a world of hurt. They do have a lot of talent, and you'd have to say that, I mean, preseason, I watched a little bit of their preseason game, and it didn't look like they had very many starters in there on the offensive line, even to start with. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. I think that their offensive line is a little more maligned than everybody thinks, and I think they might be okay.
I think the biggest thing to protect Caleb, and this is kind of what I'm going to talk about for this season, because I don't have the Bears make the playoffs, spoiler, but this goal is of this season is to protect Caleb, because Matt Eberflus, I don't think he necessarily has to make the playoffs or have a winning record to keep his job. He just has to show that this team improved, that they are right on the cusp of contending, and they just need that one extra piece. And you look at this Bears team, I mean, They upgraded the receiver room pretty heavily, bringing Keenan Allen and Rome Odunze. Their running back room is good with Roschon Johnson, Khalil Herbert, and they brought in DeAndre Swift. It's not a bad running back room. It's not a bad wide receiver room. So they have surrounded Caleb with players at the skill position. And you also have Cole Kmet and the guy who used to play for the Packers I'm blanking on off the top of my head.
Oh, yeah, no,
Tunyon,
yeah,
Robert Tunyon.
Tanyan.
They have talent around him. My concern is, though, and this is what I saw at USC, he does hold on the ball too long, and that's the issue with college quarterbacks coming to the NFL. We've seen it with many high-profile guys. But the difference is, a lot of those players had great offensive lines in college that they could sit behind there all day, and they had the protection. Caleb did not have that at all last year at USC, so maybe he has a bit more of a mindset of, hey, we have to get this ball out a little bit quicker or else I'm going to get killed.
Well, I mean, he's a rookie, so he is going to get confused in some things, and he's going to make mistakes, right? Just depends upon how quickly he comes to the front. I think that one thing that a lot of teams are sleeping on, though, and a lot of people just in general in the media and otherwise, is just how good their defense finished last year as well. I mean, you know, they were second in passing defense last year.
How much of that was trading for Montez Sweat mid-season? Did you feel like it improved them overall?
Oh, it was a huge significant. But then I also think that they started, you know, coaching. He was actually able to coach because, you know, he had pieces in play. So I just think that all around, it's a much more improved team than it was last year. I'm not sure if I'm fully willing to think that they're going to make the playoffs, but I definitely think they're a contender for a wild card.
They're a team you're going to want to watch, and with how the Bears have performed in recent years, has that been the case?
No, not at all.
And as a fan, like, at the end of the day, you want a watchable product. It's great when your team wins, but I speak to Bears fans as this who watched Matt Canada for the past couple years of my life. You want a watchable product on the field, and the Bears look like they're going to be a very watchable product on offense. And not to just talk about Caleb Williams, you and I also like their other first-round pick a whole bunch, Rome Odunze.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's a freak athlete. He's got great hands and he's got great body control. So he's a quarterback's wet dream.
And he has a relationship with Caleb already, which is huge. It doesn't sound huge, but if you know somebody now as a rookie, they're going to have 4 to 5 years together with the fifth-year option, depending on how they do contracts. They're going to mold more together, and what you're probably going to see is if Rome and Caleb pop like we think they are, they'll probably move off of DJ Moore, who they just gave a very nice contract extension to. I don't assume Keenan Allen's going to be playing 4 to 5 years from now. Maybe he will, but I don't assume that will be the case. But let alone, let's also talk about the fact Rome Odunze is in the same wide receiver room as Keenan Allen. How much learning is going to happen under that?
Well, absolutely. I would say Keenan's probably a year, maybe 2, right? I mean, and he's had a great career. But that's the thing is you've got him to teach a player kind of similar in body type and also, I mean, in catch radius and in, just skill level. Rome might be a little faster, but I mean, Keenan Allen just catches the ball, right? So to have him in the locker room, in those meetings, and also, do you have a better player, or can you think of a better player that would be a safety valve for a rookie quarterback than a guy that is seemingly always open and always in the right spot?
No, and I think there's one thing you didn't mention is when Caleb has a mistake or a bad throw, he can come in the huddle and kind of settle him down, be that veteran presence that Caleb needs.
Yeah, from everything I heard about Caleb, though, he doesn't get too rattled, so I don't know if I would worry that much about that.
But it's just added stuff he can bring, and you never know how a player's going to adjust to the NFL. You get hit by an NFL player, it's going to hurt a bit more than some people he played in college.
Yeah. Well, we've talked about Caleb and Rome, so let's go on to the 3rd round pick that they had. And I'm going to probably massacre his name, but Kieran Amaji.
Kieran, I'm just going to call him Kieran.
I like it.
He was big. I didn't watch a whole bunch of his film because it's not the easiest thing to watch Yale football film. But I remember just thinking in the little reps I saw, he looked like a man amongst boys there. He was obviously above FCS level talent, which I think shows the fact he was drafted in the 3rd round. I just don't know how much I can say certainty of him because I didn't watch a whole bunch to give a final grade on him.
Seems fair enough. And then, 4th round, it's funny that you were texting me about this today. 4th round that they picked Torrey Taylor, punter out of Iowa.
Who was Iowa's best offensive weapon last year. And no, I'm probably not joking.
It's kind of harsh, but,
Yeah, Iowa offense deserves that. And Austin Booker. Now, did you watch him? Because I love me some Austin Booker.
Yeah, I do. I do tend to like watching Kansas. I'm not exactly sure why, but I like Kansas and
it's their uniforms. They're beautiful.
Yes, they are. They are quite lovely.
He is a guy who's going to be in the NFL. That was never a doubt. Do I think he's going to be an all-level, all-pro talent, Pro Bowl? No. When I watched him, it was very clear this is a guy who's going to probably have an 8-year NFL career. We're all going to look back and be, that's a great career for a 5th rounder because he's just a good football player. He doesn't do anything amazing, but he doesn't do anything bad. He's solid in the run. He's solid in the pass. I'd say he's maybe a little bit better in rushing the passer than playing the run, but that's still a rookie. He can grow. Maybe he can pop and I'll be wrong and he becomes this all-pro level. Great. Round of applause to Austin Booker. But at the end of the day, I think you're just getting an NFL guy, and in the 5th round, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. And I mean, let's face it, since that's what they finished with, he was a good overall acquisition.
No, and do you have a little bit worry though of a team like the Bears only having 5 draft picks, or is it just like they had 2 first round picks, they hit them out of the park, they did good everywhere else in the draft? Is there no concerns there?
No, they had extra draft picks last year. No, so and 2 first round draft picks, and think about this. We hear all the time that the first round sometimes is 15 players deep, and sometimes it's 18 players deep, and sometimes it's 10 players deep. Well, guess what? They had 2 first round rated players, right?
I'd argue
Uh,
2 top 5 rated players.
that's it's very, very arguable. So, um, yeah, I think they're going to be okay,
Okay.
right? They're a young team anyway in a lot of areas. So, and then they did bring in quite a few undrafted, UDFA's. So they can fill in some spots with those.
Yep, and that's very fair. Now it's time to move on to the Minnesota Vikings. And the day we're recording this, it was announced earlier that J.J. McCarthy is done for the season. And that leads me questioning, what does this leave for the Vikings this year? Because I think it was obviously they were going to start playing Sam Darnold, but eventually, probably around midseason, they were going to pull him and put JJ in. How much
See,
does
that's where you and I differ in opinion. I think that due to how young McCarthy was, I think they really hoped that Sam could give them the full year.
mm,
They have a ton of talent surrounding him, right? Uh, and the play calling, one of the problems with Sam is that he gets flustered when he gets hit. And one of the things about this offense is that you get rid of the ball quickly and hopefully, mitigate hits. And I mean, they brought in Aaron Jones. They've got good receivers. We don't know how the health is of Addison, and then we don't know how long Addison will be suspended for, right? But they still have talent on the outside, and they've got a great tight end. So he's got all the pieces to. All he really needs to do is be average, right? And they'll be better. Look at how bad their quarterback play was after Kurt last year, and you know they were still they still were winning games and things. So I'm not at all sure that it's doom and gloom yet. Are they going to win this division? No, I don't give them the snowball's chance in hell. But can they make things interesting this year? Which is all I think they were going to do anyway, no matter if they were playing McCarthy or Sam Darnold, right?
so both of us were lower on McCarthy than a lot of people, I'll just say. I don't view losing McCarthy as a major loss because I don't think he's that much better if he's anything better than Sam Darnold. But my question is more or less, how does this impact your future? Because we have seen a lot of players who get hurt before the regular season starts as rookies. They tend to not have great NFL careers. Does that give you some cause for concern? Or is it.
No, he's a smart kid. I mean, he comes from a program that was pro ready. Uh, yeah, I don't think that he's gonna. No matter if he was hurt or if he was sitting on the bench with a notebook this year, he was gonna be on the sideline anyway, learning. So I don't think that's an issue.
Okay. And then let's look at the defensive side of the ball. And of course, there was unfortunately a tragedy that's happened already in Kyrie Jackson passing away. Thoughts to his family, of course. How do you feel about this defense as a whole, though?
Actually, I kind of like the defense. They are significantly better than what they were last year. We were just talking today a little bit about Dallas Turner, and I don't want to be a spoiler as yet for later on in the program, but he's currently on the in the second string, right? Because they brought in Jonathan Grenard and Andrew Van Ginkel, and you know how high I am on both those guys. And those are your two outside linebackers. They brought in a ton of depth on that defensive line as well. Blake Cashman is new this year. And I mean, Ivan Pace played pretty well last year. So their secondary, we'll see. But they don't really care about their secondary anyway, right? Because they're just going to blitz you. So they don't use their secondary to cover per se. They just use their secondary to blitz. So, it's live by the sword, die by the sword. But I really do. I like their defense. I think it's going to be a lot better than it was last year.
I think their defense will be good. I'm probably a bigger Grenard fan than you, just from where he went to college at. But I am concerned about losing Danielle Hunter, because there's not many guys that rush the passer better than Danielle Hunter in the NFL. Losing him, I do think, hurts. And Grenard is still young. He's still growing. Maybe he can just take over that role completely. But Danielle Hunter is a hard guy to replace. The linebacker room, you know what I just came away thinking when I looked at this linebacker room, I looked at this defense as a whole? This is so New England. It's so New England Patriots when Bill and Brian Flores were together, that they just take these guys who aren't really well known, and they just put them all together. They mesh great, and then they just kill you. It's just what it reminds me of.
That's fair. I just, like I said, his style, Flores' coaching style with some of these players. I know you're super high on Grenard, and I think Andrew Van Ginkel is one of my favorite free agent pickups for anybody this offseason.
Who Flores did coach in Miami.
Okay, so I guess I didn't realize that he had coached in there. But I love the way he plays. He's that lunch pail, give everything. You never expect him to do what he does, and you're always amazed that he has accomplished as much as he has. I think that he on the opposite side is going to make that defense really rock.
Yeah, and that's very fair. I think it's a unit that's going to be better than last year, but I just don't see the wins as they did last year, if that makes sense. I think this team is better, but they will have a worse record. And now it's time to move on to the rest of the draft. Dallas Turner, we argued about this a bit today. I'm going to say my piece real quick. He's very athletic, did not have the production of a typical highly thought of Alabama edge, which is a little concerning. I do think he has athleticism. I know he has athleticism. My concern is he is still raw. I think he's got better hands than some highly athletic guys that have come into the NFL recently, but there's still a lot of work to be done there. And I really do love Brian Flores working with him, because I think very highly of Brian Flores as a defensive coach.
I would agree with everything you said there.
Okay. Fortunately, we already talked about it. Rest in peace, Kyrie Jackson. Walter Rouse, I think that's Rouse. Offense tackle from Oklahoma. I really didn't watch him, to be completely honest. I don't know if you did.
So I watched him some because Seattle, everything always bases around Seattle for me for watching players, if you've noticed. But with Seattle not knowing exactly how the right tackle was going to be, I was looking at a lot of tackles that I thought were going to be day 3 players, just to see if they could find anybody that, that they could plug in. And so I did watch him some. I didn't think that he had a lot of great movement, but he's big. So if he gets his hands on you, it's different. I just didn't think that his movement he gets in trouble that way.
Yeah. The only time I really watched him was when I was watching Tyler Guyton, if my eyes went over to the opposite side. But I wanted to ask you, because you said he was big, is this a guy you maybe move into guard?
So there is a point where you're too big a guard, and you can't have that, right? And so Also, remember what I said about movement. What is one thing that this offense want? They want their guys to be able to move, right? And so I'm not sure. I think he's going to be a good developmental, um, but he's 6'6". Usually, you really don't want your guys that are 6'6" playing guard, you know. So, but yeah, like I said, he's just a big boy.
Okay, I'm going to ask you, what are your draft notes on Will Reichert, the kicker from Alabama?
Um, Well, he was a kicker from Alabama. He was taken in the 6th round by the Minnesota Vikings.
He was I would say a good kicker, accurate, probably not the biggest leg, but I really don't know how big of a difference that's going to be. Moving off Greg Joseph is a little interesting because I thought Joseph was good, but maybe they just really like Reichert a lot. It's so hard to predict kickers because they can have a great college career and they miss a couple kicks in the preseason or just start out and their confidence is gone.
One of the things, though, I will say is for the most part, the last few years, the kickers that have been coming out have been putting up pretty good numbers, and kickers are getting paid. I mean, when you have to cut costs. I mean, some kickers are getting 5 million a year, and that's significant. If you go back and you look through the average salaries at kickers, you have your high end, and then you have a lot of guys that are in that 1 to 2 million a year. And if you can keep yourself, lower, I mean, yeah, you might miss a couple of kicks, but I guess that just means that you're going to have to score more touchdowns, right? Your defense has got to play better.
Michael Jorgens, the center out of Wake Forest. I watched little of him. He was an ACC center. I really watched him when he was going against some just guys who were playing the ACC. He never really popped to me as someone really that I was interested in to watch, to be honest. But I will always say this. There was a drop-off in the draft, I'd say around pick 200, of where the talent kind of just fell, for me personally. So I'm not going to criticize this pick because the talent level for me in this draft fell off steep. And I think if you can just take a guy that maybe you like some traits, maybe he interviewed really well, it's worth it.
So it's funny because I actually liked him. I thought he had a lot of moxie. He has some attitude, and so I did like him. Remember, Seattle needed good, solid interior offensive line guys. So I was looking at a lot of those, and especially in the later rounds, I think he can develop into something. He's got attitude, and you always want people to have attitude. So.
Yeah. And Levi Drake Rodriguez, I never watched a game of film of Texas A&M Commerce in my life, so apologies to him. I have nothing on him.
He's got a cool last name.
Yeah, no, he's a defense tackle. I'm willing to bet you don't want to get in a fight with him.
No, he's probably a pretty big boy. So.
Yeah, I'm probably cutting that last part.
Yeah. So on their free agents, like I said, they brought in a lot of free agents this year to fill in. I mean, Aaron Jones in the running back room because, of course, they did lose some running backs. They brought in Jonathan Bullard, Jonathan Grenard, Andrew Van Ginkel, Blake Cashman, Jerry Tillery. I'm not a huge guy, but, I'm not a huge fan. But, yeah, they also, brought in Dan Feeney to, bolster the offensive line. One of the guys that I always liked watching, and he's going to be one of those guys where I think that he should be better than what he probably is, and I think it's all about him but Jihad Ward. So
I can see that, especially in Flores' defense scheme. He'll probably fit in like a glove.
I like him, and I just think that he should have been better than what he was, right?
And now, as we were talking about a team that added a running back, let's talk about the team he came from, the Green Bay Packers. I have a question to any NFC North fan, and comment down below. Do you guys have PTSD when you see Jordan Love putting up good numbers? Like, is it like, this is happening again? Why? Why is this happening again? What did I do to deserve this?
I think that's just a Packers thing to begin with. It's like, what the what?
See, you don't like the Packers I don't know how you feel about them more. You didn't like them with Rodgers. What are your thoughts on them possibly hitting the quarterback again, third time in a row?
Well, it's interesting because I am on record for several years now saying that I didn't think that Jordan Love was going to be what a first round draft pick quarterback should be. And last year, towards the end of the year, he showed a lot. So we'll see if he can keep it going. It's going to be interesting to see. I don't know if I would have paid him the money that they paid him right away, but that's just because, like I said, I wasn't sold on him. But if you think about it, they draft a quarterback, they sit him. They drafted Aaron Rodgers when Brett Favre was still playing, and Rodgers got to sit for several years. And so when Rodgers came in, and everybody was like, "Oh, we miss Brett," and then Rodgers just kind of stole the show, right? And then they bring in Love and sit him for multiple years. And I guess maybe it actually lights a fire under your existing quarterback as well. But they might have the right recipe. Pick your guy, let him develop, let him learn everything. So you're not going to have him for 3 years of to the playoffs and almost the NFC championship game. Then, I mean, what does it matter if he had to sit for a couple of years, right? So,
and then you trade him to the Jets.
No. Wow, you've been waiting to do that, haven't you?
Yeah, I've been biting my tongue on that. I've been a Jordan Love guy since his draft year, and you can attest to that. I've always been high on Jordan Love.
Absolutely.
Would I have paid him the money the Packers paid him? No. And that's not because I don't think he's a good quarterback. I've been beating his drum for a couple years now. My concern is I don't like paying a guy off 1 year production that much money. Because that's a lot of effing money.
Yeah.
And I love Love. Me and him share a first name. I think he's got a great first name. I really like him. I think he can be a guy. But if this does not work out, maybe he even just suffers an injury. And it just snowballs from there. This contract does set the Packers back. Which I'm sure no other NFC North team would cry about.
But, I mean, to be quite honest, if you look at the contracts that are now, Tua, the same way. What happens if Jared Goff gets hurt with his contract? All these quarterbacks that are making 50-plus million, it's such a handicap to their team. But the problem is, if you want to compete in the NFL, you need these guys, right? And it's a no-win situation for NFL teams, and your depth is going to go significantly worse the further on you get. I mean, you think about it, in a couple years, they're going to be paying Luke Musgrave. They're going to be paying, Jaden Reed,
Romeo Dobbs.
Yeah, there's quite a few players on the offense that they're going to have to play. And then, you're also, if Lucas Van Ness pops, and it's a tough way to play. And that's the only hesitancy, or that's the only, I guess, hiccup for not starting your first round pick quarterback early on, so that you can build the team around him. So it's going to be interesting to see how they work this year. They've got a really good team. They had a really good draft. I mean, they had a really good draft. So they filled a lot of places. You got rid of Aaron Jones, but you brought in Josh Jacobs. So they're a pretty solid team.
And let's real quick, get back to the draft conversation, and I'm not going to their draft right this second. Brian Gutekunst, I think, has drafted very well since his first Packers draft. Does that help ease you of maybe paying a quarterback like Jordan Love? Is that you have a GM that has shown he can draft good, not only in the first and second round, but on day 3 to bring in the talent?
I'm cheap. Nothing eases my mind about $50+ million.
It eases Jordan Love's mind right now. I want to talk about, though, the Packers made a great move, in my opinion. It wasn't like a big, sexy addition in the offseason. No, it was hiring Jeff Hafley, the former head coach at Boston College, to be their new defensive coordinator. Now, I don't know how much you know about Jeff. I assume it's not a whole bunch. You don't watch a lot of college football. But one thing he always did at Boston College, and I always really liked, he did more with less. He knew how to coach his guys up. They were competitive. They'd fight in those games. Just look at that game against FSU last year, who were fully healthy at the time. They had a bunch of picks in the draft. You got them to a point that you nearly upset them with a third-string quarterback. He knows how to get players to buy in, and maybe it won't work out like that at the NFL level, but he's a really good coach, in my opinion, and I think he will bring something to that Packers defense that they just haven't had in a while.
Well, I mean, and once again, we're going to say that with a lot of teams this year, because there's been a lot of like first-time coordinators, first-time head coaches. So they're great until they're not, right? And that's going to be where we're going to watch. Now, I think that guys coming from college and stepping into an OC role or a coordinator role initially, I think is great because it allows them to learn about, the NFL game. But I think in college they do more teaching, and you have a pretty young team here. So teaching is going to be huge for their defense.
And he does have pro experience. He was with the Bucs from 2012, 2013, then the Browns 2014, 2015, then the 49ers from 16 to 18. So he does have NFL experience. He probably knows he can't do what a lot of college coaches do coming to the league of, hey, I'm just going to push these guys around. That ain't going to work.
Was he excuse me, was he a coordinator or was he like
he was a defensive backs coach.
Okay. A little bit different than being a coordinator.
No, but I'm just also saying he has had experience in the NFL. It's not like first time. And now I think it's time to move on to the Packers draft. And this pick, it shocked me when it was made because I thought they were going to go Cooper DeJean. They went Jordan Morgan out of Arizona. I really liked him. I thought he was a guard, but the Packers have developed Zach Tom, who doesn't typically have the wingspan of a normal tackle. And I think he's been really good for them. Do you think Morgan moves in the guard? Or do they keep him at tackle with the experience they've had of working with a guy with a smaller wingspan?
He's going to play guard.
You that's set in your mind. He's not a tackle. He's a guard.
He's going to play guard.
Okay. Very good player, though. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, I think so. He's actually showing as their first, like their first unit as their right guard.
Oh, great. Packers know how to refill with the linemen in the draft. Lovely.
So and that's why I was so definite with what I said.
Just because he's playing guard this year doesn't mean they're not going to work on him at tackle eventually. We've seen this happen.
Yeah, but here's the thing: if they need to slide him out, they can. But he's got great feet, and so with their offense, the way they run it, he's going to be a good guard for him.
Okay, restart that segment. Something just popped up on my screen, and just start off after I asked the question of moving him to tackle guard. Okay, never mind. Just happened again. Stop that, computer. Directly in my ears. Okay.
So yes, they will be able to play him at guard if there's an injury or two, or But I mean, he's got great footwork. He's got good hands, so he's going to fit perfectly with their offensive scheme at guard.
Okay. And they then went into the second round. They drafted Edgerrin Cooper
One of
from
my favorite players in the draft.
Texas A&M, who I think you were very upset he didn't wind up a Seahawk.
Yes.
Uh, there's a lot of positives to say. Very good at linebacker, good against the run. Maybe a little raw in pass coverage, but I think that's a lot of linebackers coming in the league. Overall, I think he's going to probably blossom and be a guy that we are all saying, why did our team let the Packers get him?
See, that's funny because I thought he was actually pretty good in pass coverage too. So that's one of the reasons why I was so high on him. I thought he was pretty well rounded. But then they go and they pick another one of my favorites in Javon Bullard. I really liked a lot of the safeties in this draft class. So, hard hitter, reads well, just a solid player.
Yeah, Packers know what they like in safety. They draft them, they work out, and then they say bye after the 4 years are up, and they go draft another guy.
Yeah, well, I mean, it helps keep your salary cap low.
Yep. Marshawn Lloyd from USC. I love this pick. This was maybe my favorite pick they had because he fits the Aaron Jones role.
He's going to be starting or splitting more time than what we think by midseason.
I agree. When the first moves happened, Josh Jacobs was brought in, and he was then like Aaron Jones got cut. I was like, oh well, I guess he's their new lead back. Fast forward to April, they draft Marshawn Lloyd. Oh no, Josh Jacobs is AJ Dillon's replacement. That's their new back.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I like Josh Jacobs as well, though, so I think he's got some in the tank. What did you think of Tyron Hopper? Because I didn't think he was that high of a draft pick myself. I really wasn't that high on him.
So I don't hate drafting him third round, but this can blow up in their face. I don't think he's there quite yet. I think he can be worked on. I think the Packers are a good team at developing scouting talent, so they probably saw the talent I saw. They saw the flashes. Good athlete. Has the tools you want for an NFL linebacker. But there's just some stuff that just doesn't click yet.
He gets lost.
He gets lost. And the Packers are a very intelligent team. I think we've said that a lot. They know what they like. He kind of reminds me a lot of DeAndre Campbell, of just how his play style. Campbell's obviously a well more finished product, and he gets it more than Tyron Hopper does. But I think the tools are there, and he can very much pop with the Packers.
So we've talked about them with safeties galore right now, right? So they've drafted, Bullard. They brought in Xavier McKinney. Now they go and they get Evan Williams from Oregon in the fourth round.
And that's not the last safety they draft.
No, because they went and they got Oladapo out of Oregon State as well.
And I liked Oladapo more than I liked Williams, to be honest.
So did I.
I think Oladapo has more of a pop potential. And listen, Williams to me is a special teamer. That's just what I saw.
Oregon State's defense was just so feisty.
Yeah, and props to how they built that team. And here's the thing. What did we just talk about? Jeff Hafley comes from college football. He comes as a DB coach originally. He has seen these guys a bunch. He probably has a good idea of what these guys can do, and was like, yeah, I want that guy. I want that guy, and I want that guy.
So I don't know too much about Travis Glover. I did like the Michael Pratt pick. Bring in a quarterback, let him sit. He's completely different play style from Jordan Love. But still, I mean, I thought I think he can be a good backup.
I I like Pratt, but real quick, I want to talk about Jacob Monk. Did you watch a lot of him, or it's just Graham Barton you saw when he was on?
Oh, yeah.
So I watched Jacob Monk because I watched a lot of Graham Barton, and I was curious, why wasn't Barton the starting center? I think that's a reasonable question to ask. I thought Monk was really good. I really like that pick for the Packers. I think he's got good handwork. I think he's solid in the run game. He needs to work on the pass game. Don't get me wrong. I don't think he's that great pass blocking yet. But I really liked a lot what I saw from him. And I was like, okay, this is a guy the Packers are going to get. He's going to come in there. And next thing we know, he's just going to be a monster.
Yeah, it's possible. And also the fact that you brought up Barton, because he could play anywhere. So you put him where you don't have somebody that can play, right? And I think that was the thing for Barton, is, remember, because he did play center, his first year, but then they needed him out at tackle, and so he moved out to tackle. Yeah. So
not to talk too much about Barton, because we could talk about him for probably the entire rest of this podcast.
Yes, sir.
Kalen King from Penn State. I was lower on him, and even I was like, 7th round, that's pretty good value, and I was pretty low on Kalen King. I feel like he's going to try and be an NFL nickel. I just don't know if he is there.
He is depth. He's special teams, I mean, and it's somebody that he's got some physical tools, and you see what you can do with him.
Yep, and I'm not going to be too critical about a 7th round draft pick. Unless there's other reasons to be critical about him, I'm not. Now it's time to move on to the defending division champions, and that feels so wrong to say, the Detroit Lions.
Can I have a second here?
One.
Detroit fans, I was wrong last year, so I didn't think that you were going to be as good as you were, because you had lost some talent. You brought in Montgomery to replace at the running back position. I just didn't think that you would have that toughness, and I was completely wrong. So my foot tastes pretty good, let me tell you.
Yeah, I was so happy for the Lions and Lions fans, because they're just a team and a fan base you just want to see succeed, because they've never had it. Well, they have had it, but long time ago. And it's nice to see these new fans, like, they get experience with what I, as a Steeler fan, have grown up with, of going to Super Bowls, winning them, and it's just fun to see. Because it's not just a lot of these young kid fans who are experiencing this. It's older fans. It's fans who have been with the team for 30, 40, 50, 60 years. It's amazing to see, and when they beat the Rams in the playoffs, I got goosebumps. I was cheering for them to go to the Super Bowl. They beat the Bucs. They had some issues in the NFC Championship game. You can question with what they did on their 4th down decisions. I will say, stick to your brand. It's what the Lions did do. They didn't back down. They swung until they were down. But that doesn't mean they're going to stay down. I think this team is really, really good. But my biggest question is, the Lions have been the hunter for so long. How do they adjust to being the hunted?
Oh, I don't think you're going to have that problem, considering Dan Campbell's your coach.
Are they hunting the hunters?
Well, he is going to spin it that they were robbed last year, and nobody believes in them, and everybody's going to talk about them being a fluke. And I mean, think about it. Look at how much talk right now. Everybody's about Green Bay being one of the darlings to get into the Super Bowl. So a team that was a few plays away from winning the Super Bowl last year,
and going to the Super Bowl, winning.
Of going to the Super Bowl. I'm sorry. I think that if they would have got there, they would have won. So that's just my opinion.
That's an opinion. I don't bet against Pat Mahomes, though. So.
But I was very outspoken that they should have kicked those field goals. You and I have argued about that. We can
Still,
never go.
we still argue about that to this day.
Yes, yes, we do, and it's just a different mindset. With as hard nosed as that team is, I think you, especially in that situation, you take the points, especially with the lead that they had, right? But that's last year. This is this year. I do not think that they're going to fall off so far as mentality wise. Worrying about them being the hunted instead of the hunter. No, they're going to be playing that we're still the underdogs. Nobody respects us, and I that is a team that's going to come out for blood.
Yeah. And here's the thing: I can't remember the last time there was a division favorite that everyone still just loved and wanted to see win.
Well, heck, even KC was like that until they, won their second Super Bowl. Then people started getting disgruntled with them, and so I think the Lions, just because of how likable their team is, right? I mean, their team, Campbell makes their team fun.
Well, I don't think anybody has the guts to criticize the Lions out of fear of Dan Campbell if they run into him.
Yeah, no, I just think that he makes it fun. He makes it interesting. You don't know what they're gonna do, and for some people like me, that's so like just foreign, and I don't like it because it's not what I think should be done. But they've built themselves that way. So
what Dan Campbell is? He's a guy who could coach college football that figured out how to do it at the NFL level.
I think he's just a guy that came in and he instilled an identity to a team that hadn't had an identity for so long. I mean, you think about it, they tried going around and drafting, a ton of first round wide receivers, and they were going to, just blow up the NFL by scoring, and that didn't work. And then they bring in one of my favorite quarterbacks of all time, in Matt Stafford, and they brought in Megatron, but they always seem to have had something fail, whether it's Barry retiring or it's Megatron retiring, or it's you can't
Injuries.
Protect Stafford, right? I mean, they've literally been their worst enemy, and that's what he's changing.
Yeah, and we could spend this entire time just giving praise to Dan Campbell for what he did, turning around that franchise and turning around the fan base too, I would say, because there's hope there. There's not been hope there for a long time. And to just keep on the positive note, probably the biggest thing in my opinion the Lions did this offseason, they kept the band together. They re-signed Penei Sewell. They re-signed Jared Goff. They re-signed Amon-Ra St. Brown. They're probably going to give Aiden Hutchinson a big-time contract next offseason, if I had to guess. And the thing is, they all deserve it. And you could argue they all took a little less than they could have gotten.
I think, we've been giving Campbell a lot, but I think Brad Holmes deserves some credit as well.
Well, I was waiting to give him the credit till we get to the draft.
Okay.
But yes, what Brad Holmes has done, and he's had picks I've been like, really? I don't get it. Jahmyr Gibbs, I did not get it. I did not like the pick. I will 100% say I did not like the pick, and to be honest, I still don't, because I don't like drafting running back that high. But it worked out. I can't argue that it worked out last year. I may not like it, but it works. And that's something Brad Holmes has done. I don't like how the Rams do their front office of trading for all these vets and giving away every draft pick they have. I don't like that. Brad Holmes comes from the Rams. I don't like it. They won the Super Bowl. I have to deal with it. Brad Holmes does some stuff I don't like in the draft. It works. They win football games. I'll have to deal with it.
Maybe it just means he's smarter than you.
Well, I think that's a given.
All right, so let's go to their first overall draft pick. What was their biggest weakness last year on their team?
Secondary.
Their secondary. So first overall, they go Terrion Arnold. In my opinion, the second best cornerback in the draft. And he's the perfect player for Dan Campbell. Tough, smart, hits hard. I just love it.
Let alone when he was picked, that emotion he had when he came out there, like, he looked like he wanted to hurt somebody for falling that far.
Well, he will try to hurt people because, he's going to have a chip on his shoulder, right? So, and, Dan Campbell will bring it out in him. So it's great. And then they go right back to the well and they get Ennis Rickshaw. And, I mean, they're like, okay, we had a bad secondary last year. We're going to fix this. And so we're just going to keep throwing, players at this until we get it fixed. And we think that we got the players now to do it.
Yep. I wasn't as high on Rakestraw as a lot of other people, but I see with what they were doing. And the Lions are attacking with what they need fixed. They're not just putting like a little Band-Aid on it. No, they're trying to duct tape the thing shut. It's gonna work. Instead of just maybe tiptoeing around their issues, they're just going to attack it. And I wanted to ask you what your thoughts are on Giovanni Manu. How much of him did you watch?
Not much. Are we passing on?
No, he was their third. He was their third pick.
Oh, so I thought Sione Vaki was.
Vaki was their fourth pick, but Giovanni Manu. I didn't watch a whole bunch of University of British Columbia. My note did say 6'7", 350. Good Lord, that's big.
Yeah, that is big. If he moves, if he's athletic, then you might have something there.
Well,
so
I remember when they were showing his thing. I think it was down. Jeremiah said he is a very athletic guy, which made me think if he's moving and he hits you, you feeling it.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing. Yeah, if he hits you, if he gets a hold of you,
you ain't leaving. You're staying right there.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, Sione Vaki. I love this kid. I mean, he is. Is he not just a Dan Campbell guy playing him running back? But oh wait, do you need somebody in the secondary because he can play safety as well? He is just such a hard-nosed football player.
That's one thing I will say is that Utah has a very similar philosophy as the Detroit Lions. So he is going to know how to embrace that culture already the day he steps on that football field. And as you said, he is a versatile player. He can play DB and running back. Which makes me ask, because he has those two skill sets, do you think he's the return man?
No. Well, I mean, okay. I don't know if he's fast enough.
That's very fair. That's very fair. And the thing is, when I was looking at him and I saw those two skill sets, I'm like, those could translate very well to the new return rule. Because DBs have to track the ball in the air. They have to be aware of their surroundings. And running backs, they very well know how to read holes. And that's a big thing. I think you're going to see a lot of running backs as return men now is because they have to read the proper holes to hit and all that.
Yes, absolutely right. And he's not afraid to, to stick his head in there and, make contact with players.
To be fair, wouldn't it be the most Dan Campbell move just to have a guy who just wants to run through somebody on a return? Who cares about speed? Go hit somebody.
Yeah, so he was a 4.62, so I mean he's not slow, but I mean, yeah, he's not explosive.
No. Makai Wingo. I don't know how he was a 6th-round pick. I had a 3rd-round grade on him. I loved him. I loved Wingo.
He disappears too much for me.
That's fair. That's fair, but as I have said, there was a drop-off in player quality for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't get how he fell this far when I view that drop-off. I think he's very good, very talented with his hands, strong dude, can get down, has a good bull rush in my opinion, and if you have a good bull rush, you're on the NFL team. And Christian Mahogany, the guard from Boston College, I thought he is going to probably transition to being just a pulling guard. That's all I really see for him.
Yeah, I like him. Big, strong guy, toughness. They're showing him currently at on the 3rd team, so we'll have to see what happens. But I mean, their offensive line is coached very well, right? So,
and it's very deep.
Yes, it is. It is. And here's the thing. I mean, Kevin Zeitler, you brought in Kevin Zeitler to start for you this year when Jonah left. And Zeitler's good when he's healthy, but he's getting old. He gets hurt. And so you might see Christian Mahogany sooner rather than later.
And that's very fair. Do you have anything to add about this Lions team, or do you want to move on to offensive rookie and defensive rookie of the year for this division?
No. We have to talk about what could be a game-changing free agent pickup for them, and that's DJ Reader.
I forgot about that. Yep, no, that is worth the conversation. DJ Reader, probably the toughest SOB to run the football on, in my opinion.
He's amazing, and the fact that they picked him up, in that black and blue, the North is black and blue, right? It's not just the AFC North; it's the North in general, because especially during those cold times, everybody wants to run the ball, and he's great, and he is not only great against the run, but he also is so good at pressure. So I think that was one thing that last year that they suffered from is, outside of Aiden Hutchinson, they didn't have anybody that helped get pressure. And so now you have DJ Reader coming up the middle. And then Marcus Davenport, who, let's remember, he played with Dan Campbell when Campbell was in New Orleans. He's there too. Their pressure package might be a lot better than what it was last year, which will in turn help the secondary. So I think that the Lions actually went out and got better this year than what they were last year, and that's scary.
So as a team, you're a fan of the Seahawks. They played the Lions early. How terrified are you of that game?
Yes. Yes.
Hear that, Lions fans? You have people shaking in their boots. Enjoy it. Yeah, I completely forgot about DJ Reader. I don't know why. I thought he was still on the Bengals. Probably because he's been tormenting me for years.
Yeah, no, he's in Detroit, and he is going to make a huge impact.
Yep, as we have said, the Packers have a good running back room. The Vikings can run the ball. And let's say the Bears have a very good running back room. They ain't going to be running on the Lions. Just not happening. And now it's time to move on to Offensive Rookie of the Year for this division. And I have two. I have the generic answer of Caleb Williams. I don't need to explain myself why Caleb's probably going to be the Offensive Rookie of the Year for this division. So I wanted to spice it up, and I wanted to give a second name. And I had to make sure this made sense of someone who can produce at a high rate, who I think will get a lot of touches, will score some touchdowns. And I went with Marshawn Lloyd, the running back from Packers.
Fair enough.
As we said, I think he's the lead back by midseason. I think they're going to rely heavily on him. They're going to use him a bunch. He's going to be good in the receiving game. He's going to be good running the football. I think he's a very versatile weapon who's going to get a lot of touches and a lot of scoring opportunities.
Very fair. I'm thinking that it's going to be Caleb. Would I be surprised if Lloyd did it? Absolutely not. Just because of where they're at, and they do like to run the ball. So, and he's going to add a change of pace. So, I can totally see that. Who's your defensive rookie of the year?
Stan Lambeau, Edrin Cooper.
So I was torn. I've already mentioned that I think that he was one of my favorite players in the draft, but I got to go Terrion Arnold. And here's one of my reasons why. He fits, like I said, he fits their defensive structure, in my opinion, perfectly. And he's going to allow, I think they're going to be playing him in the slot. Right. And so because of that, I think that Branch is going to stay more in the backfield and let his ball skills, get more interceptions, hit better, help on that deep. And I think that Terrion Arnold is kind of like that linchpin that is going to make that defensive secondary just so much better, because he's there and he's not afraid to go in and stick his nose in against the run and hit, and his moxie.
So the reason I went with Edrin Cooper, I really like the Packers front seven. I think it's a very good front seven. They got a lot of talent there. I think he's going to get opportunities to rush the passer. When he's going downhill, he is going to get to the quarterback. He's going to get those running backs in the backfield. As you said, he has the talent in the pass coverage game. I'm lower on it than you are, but I still think some talent is there. He's going to be sitting in the middle of the field, and when this weather gets cold, there's not going to be many deep balls. You will go over the middle of the field when the weather gets cold, and Edrin Cooper's going to be sitting there waiting for you.
Fair enough. I just, like I said, I just to the winner goes the spoils, and I think that the Lions are going to be on top again. So,
and, well, speaking of that, defensive MVP, this was maybe the easiest one for me. I put Agent Hutchinson down. It wouldn't shock me if he actually just won Defensive Player of the Year outright. Last year, I noticed when I was watching that Chiefs game week 1, he's so much better. He's so much better than he was a year before. And he has been working. He's been developing. And as you said, the Lions did add some other guys. He is not going to be as double teamed as he was. He's still going to get his double teams, don't get me wrong. But there's not going to be as much availability to give him all that attention. I think he's going to feast and have a great year.
I think that he's going to have a good year as well. I got Jonathan Grenard. So he had a really good year last year, and I just think that defense is going to just open him up and allow him to do so many things. He's a little bit of a freelancer, and Flores loves a guy that is just going to wreak havoc.
That's very fair. Offensive MVP. I'm going to ask for yours first.
Goff.
Same team, different player.
You went Amon-Ra.
I went with the sun god Amon-Ra St. Brown.
So, ironically, if I didn't pick Goff on that team, I would have picked Jahmyr Gibbs.
So I take Amon-Ra mainly because he was injured last year and he was amazing. I can't remember the exact injury. I believe it was a midsection injury. It was like an oblique. And it sounded brutal when I heard it, and I realized I would be dead in the bed for the rest of the season. No, he played, and he was destroying defenses. He was destroying cornerbacks. He's great catching the ball. He's a great route runner. He'll even block. What's not to love about Amon-Ra St. Brown? I have him rated very highly, so I'm going to give him offensive MVP.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. I get it. I'm just there's got to be somebody dishing him the ball, and Goff,
So now it's time to go division standings, and I really don't think we're gonna have a disagreement because I think this is a very easy division to figure out the division standings.
So this is a very easy division for standings on August 14th.
That is very fair. Injuries can happen, but that can happen with any division. If Pat Mahomes gets hurt, the Chiefs probably aren't winning the AFC West.
I would agree with you there.
So while we're looking at this without injuries, and there have been injuries to the Vikings, unfortunately, as we're recording this, I have the Vikings in fourth place.
So did I, followed by the Bears in third.
Same, Bears in third. I think
Packers.
There's progress with the Bears, but I don't think they're there yet. As you said, Packers second. I had them second as well.
Yeah.
And, of course, the Detroit Lions on first.
Yeah.
That still feels wrong to say, but
they've earned it.
They have definitely earned it. Can't say enough positive things about their team. I think we've rambled about their team maybe the longest. If not, it was the Packers. And I think overall, this will be a fun division because these teams are all good. They have some weaknesses. We've talked about the Vikings. They're very strong on defense. They have Justin Jefferson. Can we trust their quarterback play? Don't know. Bears. Caleb Williams is going to be fun to watch. That defense is improved. Maybe you have questions on that line, but that receiving group is going to be a whole bunch of fun. Packers. They are close to being there, but we need to see a second productive season from Jordan Love to improve on from last season as well. Lions. We listed off every positive about the Lions, and we had very little negatives to list off. These teams are very loaded, and I wouldn't be shocked if you saw the Packers and Lions possibly playing to determine who goes to the Super Bowl.
That is very fair, and we'll get into reasons why later on in these situations. But yeah, that you could very well be right.
Yep. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Up next will be the AFC North, and I get to ramble about the Steelers and talk about some other teams that I just love so much. Peace.
And he's really hoping that something is done one way or the other with the Brandon Ayuk situation because this is literally his obsession right now.
It's driving me crazy.
All right. Have a good one.
Peace, everyone. Have a great day.